Derek Stewart speaking. Welcome to the DC Stewart Show, and thank you for joining us tonight. This is a Sunday night. Um, we're going to go over some games from yesterday, which are college games, and then we're going to cover a little bit of NFL today. I got my co-host Isaiah sitting here with me, and we're going to go over a few things with you, the viewer. But first and foremost, please hit that like button and subscribe to us because we need your support. And we don't charge anything for a subscription. So definitely subscribe, hit that like button, and we'll go from there. We got some really interesting subjects to talk about today. I want to introduce Isaiah as my co-host. Go ahead, Isaiah. What's going on with you tonight?
Hey man, I just got through watching a little bit of the Lions game, and I've been watching football ever since Friday, man. And there's been some exciting stuff, very interesting weekend this week, man. I've seen some teams that went down, like Georgia, and some other teams that you expect to win, and the Michigan's getting beat down like they've never done before. I've seen some games that was flat out embarrassing to watch, man. So. Man, it's been ugly. Some of this stuff been ugly. I've seen some gruesome hits too this weekend, so we're going to cover a lot of that, man. I've seen some hits where I hadn't seen these type of brutal hits in a while. So let's get into it.
All right, sounds good. Let's start with the University of Miami game. U was basically
Oh,
undefeated until yesterday. What's your
team
biggest
got
takeaway? I didn't watch the game, so you can give
watched
us,
the whole thing.
some ins and outs of what the takeaways, what the turning points in the game was, so it'll give us a better idea of how the game went. So start with the takeaways.
Well, the takeaways were University of Miami went several fourth and three and fourth and four, fourth and one, and came up empty when they could have either punted the ball away or kicked the field goal because University of Miami got a really, really good kicker, and this guy can kick 50 yarders and they didn't even give them an opportunity. They were so intrigued to score a touchdown, and they went for it, and they came up empty on three occasions where they could have got points out of it, and they lost about 8 points. They could have had those 9 points with those three field goals, and they would have won the game. So those were the takeaways. Now, they couldn't stop Georgia Tech's run either because that quarterback was elusive. He was outsmarting them. He was tucking the ball and running up and down the field. But, they just couldn't hold this guy at bay. Those were the pros and cons to them losing. They could have won that game. They just took them lightly. They thought that they was going to make those massive comebacks like they've done on each one of those games that they had a hard fought battle this
Hmm.
year. They would win it in the last couple series. And this time they fumbled the ball. They didn't get a chance to get it back because the time ran out on them. So that was the way they lost.
Okay. So do you blame the coaching for that? Do you blame the adjustments
I
that
think
weren't made, or where you say adjustments were made in the second half for them to be able to have a chance to win the game? What would you say about
Well,
that?
adjustments were made in the game. That's what kept them in the game because in the first half it was just a dogfight. But those um, ideas of running the ball or going for it in those fourth downs where they could have kicked the field goal, that was a turning point of the game. That's the reason why they lost. They played catch up. They scored a touchdown when they needed, but they came those fourth down came back to hunt them in the end. So they got the ball back with a couple minutes left, but then they fumbled the ball. And when
Hmm.
Georgia Tech got it back, they just ran the clock out on them. But it was a surely great game, man. It was a hard fought game, and it shows you why Ward should be the Heisman Trophy or deep in that. Speaking of being the Heisman, because he did a great job other than, fumble the ball when he got it batted down or somebody stripped him of the ball. Just as the 2 minute warning was coming in. But the game was only lost by those crazy positions to go for that 4th and 1 and 4th and 4 and 4th and 3. That's what I think those were the turning points of the game.
You know what's something about Georgia Tech? I mean, that they have this penchant to beat Miami, and they haven't beaten Miami a lot, but they've beaten Miami in times that you would expect Miami to win the game, like a year ago. All they had to do was kneel on the ball. I mean,
Yeah,
the game was at Hard Rock Stadium. All they
yeah,
had to do was kneel on
actually,
the ball. They decided to run a dive play, and it was a fumble. Georgia Tech recovered the ball, and all of a sudden, Georgia Tech gets this momentum where they basically drive down the field and they score on Miami, and they won that game. So it's just heartbreaking to see that the Canes, they played really hard, but they came up short. And it doesn't ruin their season, though. One thing I will say, that this game is an eye opener for them, because they're going to make that 12-team playoff. It just depends on how the playoff layout from the top 12 teams is going to be at the end of the year, which I suspect Miami will be in that top 10 somewhere. I don't know how far they're going to fall. I'll look at um, the AP rankings, and we'll see where Miami is right now, starting tomorrow, because I think the polls generally come out after 12 midnight tonight. So the teams that lost, Georgia is going to be realigned as well,
but
because they lost to
I
Mississippi
can't see
yesterday.
a team dropping 2 games and then being a playoff. I just can't see that. Georgia, I think, made a mockery of their season by losing this game.
I think
This
they
week,
did too,
I think
because
they're
what
out of the
happens
game.
is you really don't have room for 2 games. Right now, as of now, the Associated Press has Georgia at number 11. So if the playoffs were to start,
They'll be
Georgia
out.
would still be in it. And Miami
Wow.
fell to 12. So
Ooh,
Miami is right on the cusp
trouble.
o-
Wow.
of they fell all the way to 12. They went down -8. So that's not good in a way,
Mhm.
because they're going to have to finish the year out strong. I mean, in order to be in that top 12 rotation. I mean, because you have Boise State at 13, and SMU of all teams are going to be at number 14. SMU has a good squad, and I want to say
What's
SMU
their
is in the
record?
ACC.
What's their record? SMU's record.
SMU 8-1.
So they
They're
got the
8-1.
same. They got the same record as the Canes.
Exactly. But I guess, when they go to vote on some of the rankings, it has to do with
The
the
team they
score,
played
and
and all that stuff too. The teams
right,
that they lost against is a big.
right. So SMU has the ex offensive coordinator, Rhett Lashley. He's the head coach of SMU. And he's done a really good job at SMU to bring that program up to where it is today. He left Miami, and then he went to SMU. So that makes a huge difference for that program, the Mustangs. So getting back to the top 10, as you can see, it's only a handful, it's only 2 undefeated teams right now. Oregon is by far the best team in the country right now. They're undefeated. They're sitting atop all by themselves. They've beaten all of the teams they needed to beat. They're 10-0. They wiped out Maryland yesterday, and I can see Oregon finishing undefeated, and more than likely Indiana. They won their game yesterday against Michigan, and we'll talk about Michigan a little bit later, because what a turnaround in turn for the worse. I mean, Michigan's program went from the top to the almost the bottom. I
Well,
mean, with their
they're looking like Florida State. Florida State had an undefeated season two. They got ready to go to the bowl game, and Michigan won everything. So it's looking ugly for both of these teams. I think Florida State is a tad worse than Michigan, but man, neither one of them have that thing wrapped together like this year. I mean, I believe, you know, Florida State head coach may get fired because it's like a total 360 degree from what they played last year. At least Michigan is a little bit more competitive than Florida State is playing right now. But if I understand that Florida State released some of their coaches yesterday.
They fired 3 coaches yesterday. They fired the
Mm.
offensive coordinator, they fired the defensive coordinator, and they
Wow.
fired the wide receivers coach.
Wow, I heard
And
about they.
that was Mike Norvell's decision, supposedly, according to the media outlets, that he decided to let go these coaches because obviously he needs to get a spark. I would assume that he's going to looking for a spark for this team, and they're sitting completely at the bottom of the ACC, at the ACC
Wow,
conference right now.
I don't see how he's going to get a spark releasing half of his staff. I would be more intrigued to say you ride it out with those guys. Those were guys who was in, on the staff last year, right? When all those guys was there when
Yes,
they went undefeated?
yes, yes.
They just got to pay all those guys, and while they sitting home watching them lose. Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, that's just, I guess that's part of the business of coaching that, I guess a head coach who's trying to really kind of turn his team around decides to do this type of thing. It had to have been something that, he thought deeply about. I would assume that Mike Norvell thought really deep about these coaches, because we spoke about this a while back, that these coaches, it's
yeah,
it's a brotherhood, and their families know each other. They go out and eat. Their
yeah,
kids know each other. Their wives know each other, and it's kind of hard letting people go that you've built a relationship and you've bonded with.
yeah.
Unless plastic happens and something egregious happens, I don't see
Well,
how it
he
can
might
be
have had some
easy.
pressure coming on top too. Maybe it was some pressure for him to start trying to can a couple people where it won't look so much of him being the problem. So damn,
Right, right.
I don't like to see how. I mean, he dropped 3 or 4 coaches in the ninth week. I just think he should have just let them finish off the season. The season is already screwed up. You're not going to salvage anything. You might go to a candy apple bowl or something like that at best, but then you clean off your staff. I mean, what if he gets fired anyway and you done got rid of your staff?
Well,
I,
as far as Candy Apple Bowl, Florida State ain't going nowhere. They
well,
going
that's what
they
I'm saying.
packing
That's
they
why I
gonna
said a
pack up their
candy apple
equipment
bowl.
at the end of the year and they're done. I mean, as far as playing in any bowl, I don't know any team that's 1-9 right now that's sitting at the bottom of the division that they can actually play in a bowl. It looks like their conference record is 1-7. Their overall record is 1-9. So that's
Mm,
pretty
mm.
pretty bad for a
Who would have
program that went
ever
13 and
imagined?
0 last year.
Who would have imagined they would be in this condition after having such a beautiful, successful season last year? And not only that, it was a controversial topic because they wanted to play in the national championship game last year. Damn.
But they didn't have Jordan Travis. I mean, Jordan Travis was their
Well,
starting
that was the
quarterback
main
and he
reason
broke
why
his
they
leg.
wouldn't put him in there because they felt like they was going to get mauled without him. And then of course, they did get the snot beat out of
Mhm. Mhm.
them. Man,
Yeah, well, we'll see at
unbelievable.
the end of the year how Florida State navigates in terms of, because I'm pretty sure that the athletic director and the president of the university, they all get together and they have an evaluation of the coach. I'm pretty sure that go on at all of the schools, especially the larger CFP schools where the stakes are high. So
Hmm.
I'm pretty sure that they're probably going to sit down with Norvell, probably have him convince them that this was one of those years that was more like
Yeah,
an aberration, you know,
man.
and we'll see how that goes.
But
Now, if
I
moving
don't,
to
I don't
number,
want them to start messing with Dion, thinking Dion gonna be their savior. Leaves Prime exactly where he is. Prime doing
they're
good
not
over
going to
there.
leave him. They're not going to leave him exactly
Prime,
where he is,
Prime don't even
especially if
need to
they
answer the phone.
if
They
they
call
release Norvell. They're not going. His name is going to probably pop up first because
if I was
look at his
Prime.
record
If
this
they
year.
call me, I'll send them straight to voicemail because they passed him up twice already. Now he's winning at another school. They want to, you know, try to get him, lure him out from Colorado. He should just send him the voicemail when they call his phone.
Well, if I wouldn't send him the voicemail, especially if they're talking about throwing the kitchen sink at him monetarily.
Mhm.
Would you send him the voicemail?
Well, yeah, because Colorado, I guarantee, would match anything they got to offer. That's why
I
he need to
would
stay right
hope
where he is.
Colorado is thinking about matching
Well,
anything
they
that comes
will.
his way. Yeah,
Man, if you see the kind of money that and the revenue he's got generated over there, they not letting Prime leave, man. They're not. And if
I
they
think it would
do,
be a little bit risky for him to leave because he's established a foundation at
of course he
Colorado, and
has.
he
He's
could
got a
build his
good
own
coaching staff,
legacy
man. He's got
at
everything going on
Colorado.
over there for him. Of course.
Yeah.
He's got. I mean, he won't have his son, and he won't have Hunter there next year. But still, he's got a solid coaching staff for him to uproot and try to go somewhere else. I think that'll be a terrible idea, especially going to Florida State. So
Well, he
yeah,
would take some of those coaches, if not all those coaches, with him if he were to leave. I'm pretty sure he'd ask him to come. Wouldn't you think?
yeah, they probably will come over there with him. But I think what he need to do is just continue to build on right where he is. I remember when Charlie Strong was over at Louisville and they lured him over to Texas and he couldn't pull it off over there and they short ordered him out. But it sometimes the grass is not greener on the other side, despite it look like that, but it's not. So I
Especially
believe he
when
should
they
stay
offer you
right
that
where
type
he
of
is.
money and it's so intriguing and so attractive. But think about if he would have stayed at Louisville, what type of legacy
But,
he could have built at
but I
Louisville.
often think about that. I
Yeah.
often think about what if he would have stayed there, because then he had his own players that was there. He was recruiting well, and then he go way over to Texas to get freaking almost racial profile over there because they hated his guts when he went over there and he started losing. And then the former coaches even was talking crap about him when he was over there, trying to, tell these high school kids not to go play for him. So it was ugly. It was a nasty few years that he was there.
Yeah. He ended up leaving, he left Texas and he went over to South Florida and he didn't seem to
Never get it
create
on track
any
again.
any any winning at South Florida. I mean, it
No,
pretty much kind of ended up the same way.
nope.
And he got
As a
let go
matter
at
of
South
fact, he
Florida.
wasn't successful as a head coach ever since then.
Right. Well, I still think he's a good coach. He ended up
I
on
know
Saban's
he's a good
staff.
coach.
He's been on Saban's staff several times, and he's been on Miami's staff. So
Yeah,
he could, if he still wanted to work, I'm pretty sure he would be able to work. He would be able to find a job as a coordinator somewhere,
I thought
depending
he's
on
in
if he's
Alabama
interested
now.
in.
Isn't he at Alabama now?
I Let me validate that. Let me
I thought he
validate
left
that real
Miami and
fast.
went to Alabama.
I
Because
don't
I
know
knew he.
because when Saban retired, I don't know whether he stayed at Alabama.
Oh,
So Charlie Strong right now, it looks like
what
it
is
doesn't
that?
look like he's at Alabama. I mean, I don't see him on
Okay.
Alabama's coaching roster.
Well, he might be just taking a year off then, just to relax. That's probably what he's doing. He's been coaching all of his adult life. He should take a year off and just relax. But
So
yeah.
right now, because Kalen DeBoer, which was the coach at University of Washington, who
Hmm.
accepted the job at Alabama since Saban retired,
Hmm.
it looks like he brought most of his coaches from Washington with him,
Yeah.
and Strong is not on that staff. I don't see his
Okay.
name anywhere here. So and while we're talking about Alabama, did you see that spanking that they put on LSU yesterday
No, I
in
didn't.
Baton
And,
Rouge? And
and LSU was home getting a really good spanking, man. I watched that quarterback run up and down the field, man. They was smashing them down. and they just didn't
Yeah.
have no answer for that quarterback. That quarterback was fake like he gonna hand that ball off and tuck it and take off and running up and down the field. And his parents was overjoyed to see him do that. I love to see those parents enjoying their kids while they out there playing. His dad was there high
Yeah.
fiving his
I mean,
mom.
he had a
They
I
make you
mean, he
smell
had a Heisman type game yesterday. I mean, those runs that he made was freaking
like
amazing, man.
you
They
know,
were amazing to see him just they shredded up LSU's defense like LSU wasn't even playing defense, to be honest with you.
I was watching the game with a couple LSU fans, and you would not believe how quick they disappeared. They would. I still looking to my right, looking to my left, both of them was gone.
Gone.
Yeah, they took off, man.
Yeah.
I thought they would just go and take a little pee-wee break, and then they didn't ever come back.
It's a huge embarrassment for Brian Kelly, who was a coach at Notre Dame and he took that LSU job.
Oh,
He chased the money just like a lot of other coaches, went to LSU.
yeah.
It was probably a good choice at the time for him because at Notre Dame, he was never going to be able to bring the type of players in he wanted at Notre Dame. Since that's a private school, it's a smaller school. He took the LSU job and he's a great coach. I mean, Brian Kelly is one of the best coaches in college football. But yesterday, it was embarrassing to be beaten inside your stadium like that. I'm going to check and see how many yards Milroe had on the ground because I mean, if
Man,
you
he
think
was
about it,
dude, they was smashing them guys. Man, that game was brutal to see them just smash them on their home turf like that, and the college kids, those they just their faces was in the, like sorrow. You should have seen those student section, man. They was
oh, they get quiet and then they
horrified.
get pissed off. They throw stuff on the field, and we'll talk about that later. But
They didn't get this.
Milroe had 185 yards and
Oh
four TDs
man,
on the ground. How can you let a quarterback, even though this guy's technically a running back with a quarterback's arm,
yeah,
but you let this man on 12 carries gain 185 yards with four TDs, and these were long sprints. It wasn't
yeah.
like he was getting 2, 3 yards at a time. He was hitting them
He ran a
holes and
72 yarder, I think.
yeah, yeah. He was man, he that dude was hitting them holes and he had a 75-yard run.
Yeah, see?
Yeah. And then he turned around and he had a 10-yard run. He
You
had a
know that's gonna be our
39-yard
defense
run.
weekend. That
And
type
I
of
could keep going
production.
on and on and on. And maybe LSU just they didn't wake up that day. The team.
That type of production out of a quarterback will kill your defense, man.
Yeah.
It just kills your defense. You might as well put the second string in there because the first string gonna be so gassed for air when you let a man run 70 something yards. And that just in bold,
Yeah.
go
Of
back.
course.
And you know what? For a quarterback to be able to do that, that means there's a lot of downfield blocking amongst those receivers too. When a guy run a long touchdown like that, that means he's got that downfield blocking from his receivers to keep them DBs from tackling him. So
Well, it's
man,
nothing like pushing a man in a direction
mm,
against
mm,
his
mm, mm.
will that
Mm,
when you push him in either direction, right, left, or backwards, it's pretty impressive if you can block a person like that and it's against their will. They're really not trying to let you push him back or push him off to the side. And these runs look like they were
mm.
zone type runs to me. I mean, basically,
That's fun.
yeah, a zone run is where basically the quarterback and the running back read off of which direction the defender
Mhm.
is being pushed in, and they
Yeah.
cut back. It's cut back zone type of runs. And it was very impressive. I got to give Kalen DeBoer, who's the head coach of Alabama, a lot of credit because he was taking some heat. He was taking some heat a couple of weeks ago when
Yeah.
they were getting beat. So you got to give him credit that they're right back
He
in it.
rebounded. He redeemed himself this week.
He redeemed himself this week because if you think about it, is you couldn't have asked for a better, you know, output, and you couldn't have asked for a better result against a team like LSU at home, right?
Mm-mm. Nope. And that was
Yeah. So
a
let's.
jam-packed stadium, man. That stadium
Oh, well,
was
LSU
yeah.
games are always sold out. Always sold out. I'm talking about years in advance.
Mm-hmm.
Season ticket holders, you have to usually buy a ticket from a season ticket holder if they can't attend the game or something like that. That's just how devoted and dedicated people are to football at Louisiana State University, which is like it's like a godsend. I mean, those people, they eat, breathe, and sleep LSU football.
Well, I'll tell you one thing, those two who was sitting me with me ain't eat, breathe, or nothing because boy, they couldn't stand it. They couldn't bear to watch that butt beat they were getting. Them guys took off and never sat back down.
That's right.
Not to watch that game. They just
So
couldn't take it.
Alabama currently has 2 losses. Ole Miss has 2 losses.
Yep.
Texas
Georgia,
A&M has
Georgia.
2 losses. So it's going to be interesting to see how the SEC pans out at the end of the year on who's going to be in that
That's gonna be
championship
very
game
interesting
because
because if you get a team that has only one loss, it's gonna be some controversy going down. I'm telling you.
oh,
If
no
you
doubt
have a,
about it.
let's just think about what you just said. The University of Miami lost one game and they out of the top 10. So
Exactly.
there's going to be some stuff going down. I knew they was going to drop, but I didn't think they were going to fall out of the top 10. I did not think that. And especially when they didn't get a butt beaten. Now, what probably happened, the fact that Georgia Tech has lost so many games and then they let them beat them, they might have factored that in because I think Georgia Tech was what, 4 games or something like that?
I want to say they did, and I can check that right now so we can fact check that. Georgia Tech
I think they
is
were 5-4.
yeah, they haven't had a great year. Uh right literally Miami I knew this was
Gave
going to
them
be
the
one of them try
game.
to kind of trap games for Miami. It's
They
just
actually
it's
gave
always
them
is.
the game. I think if they would have just played, because they did play hard, I can't take that away from them, but they didn't play smart. And also, there was a lot of missed calls during that game, man. Georgia Tech was holding, dude, they was holding. I mean, it's a crime they was holding so much, and it was not being called.
Where they're 6 in the ACC, so that tells you right where everything is when it comes to their wins and loss in the wins and loss category. Uh if they're 6 in the ACC, that's pretty low. I mean, if you look at the ACC standings,
That's the reason why they probably University of Miami fell so high there because
they're six
you
and four overall, and they're 4-3 in the conference. SMU, Clemson, and Miami is sitting up top, each with 1 loss. Well, SMU exactly. Miami is 9-1, SMU is 8-1, and Clemson is 7-2. So if they were to play the championship tomorrow, I would say SMU would be playing Miami if it were to play tomorrow, because Clemson has a 6-1 in the conference. Miami's 5-1, and SMU is 5-0 in the conference. But then again,
so
it could be Clemson.
early. Yeah,
Yeah, because I
they
don't think
lost
Miami
early.
play Clemson this year.
They don't unless they play them in the
Right.
playoff.
Correct. So the 2 top teams in the conference is going to play each other for the ACC championship, you know, and that's going to be interesting to see because Miami has had that run all year, and they can't stop now. I mean, it's
You,
too they got to
you
keep
know,
moving.
I was so disappointed in them, man, because they just didn't play smart. They just didn't play smart. They was almost arrogant because all they had to do is just kick a field goal, man. Kick a field goal and just give these guys the ball back and just play some defense instead of trying to go for it and got sacked or either fumbled the ball. or something like that when they can just got those 3 points and just live with the 3 points instead of trying to go for six. And
Right.
then wound up not getting the first down and turn the ball over to them. And that's what ultimately cost them the game because otherwise they would have won. So
Right.
I mean, winning, you got to put every variable together. You know, you got to do some smart coaching and then you got to do some tough ball playing. Well, when you don't
Hmm.
gather both of them, you'll wind up losing, man. And that's what happened to them yesterday.
Absolutely. I mean, again, the coattail on what you just said, Miami played really hard. First half, they had some breakdowns on defense, and their offense weren't moving the ball like they should have, but their defense seemed to be confused with Georgia Tech, their alignments and their
They lost
movements,
one of their players too.
directions. Huh?
They lost one of the defensive players for targeting also.
Right.
That tossed
So
out the
that's
game.
that's that's interesting to see how they're going to rebound against Wake Forest at Hard Rock, and they have to go to Syracuse. So they have Wake Forest, Syracuse, and they got to win both of those games. They can't lose any more football games in the
Yeah,
conference.
I think they're gonna beat both of them, but I'm just saying if they would have freaking done what they were supposed to do and took care of business yesterday, man, they could have been gliding in there undefeated.
Oh, no doubt
Glide
about it.
the end of the season undefeated, man.
That would have been just amazing to see them going into these last two games undefeated, and it just, sometimes things happen. This might be a wake up call for the team. Sometimes it
I
takes,
surely
a
hope
s-
so because
it
it
takes a
looked like
back
it took them
slap.
for granted.
It takes
I
a
mean,
back slap from a team that when you think that you too good, or
and
you too.
it made me feel like that because you going for it 4th and 1 when you got a freaking dynamite kicker. It's almost like they got arrogant or big headed to say, "Oh, I know I'm going to convert this fourth down," and they didn't on 3 different occasions where they could have came away with points, and they came out empty handed. And that's the way I say you can't do that if you want to be a championship. You got to get points when they're available to you, and those three
Correct.
points were available to them, and they just tried to go for 4th and 4, 4th and 3, 4th and 1.
So let me throw this scenario at you. What do you think about Florida with Billy Napier? I mean, I like Billy Napier. I don't get. I mean, I like Billy Napier. I think Billy Napier is a super good coach. And if anything, I would hope the Florida alumni and the Florida administration allow him to have another year, because I think he deserves
They're
another
probably
year.
going
What do
to.
you think?
They're probably
Well,
going
Florida
to.
is sitting at almost the bottom. I mean, they're 2-4 in the conference, 4-5 overall, and it looks like they've been taking some beatings too. Not as bad as Florida State, but it doesn't look good for them right now.
It depends who's out there, as opposed, it depends who's really out there to replace him. Because usually, when they look at the market and see who's available, they may go
Hmm.
ahead and make a decision to run him off. But when they don't see like a legit replacement, they just gotta bite the bullet and give him another shot, give him another year. Because I'm actually afraid of Miami, the University of Miami offensive coordinator be, somebody gonna start pulling at his coattail too to grab him from over there because that guy is a hell of a play caller. I don't know
Oh
what
yeah.
his game management skills are, but as terms of how he conducting his offense for the University of Miami, I can see him getting some offers to be a head coach somewhere soon.
Oh, he definitely. Shannon Dawson is his name. Coach Dawson. He definitely is. I think he's a top candidate to go somewhere. I mean, I don't know which schools would he would be a fit for, but he's the offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach, and he's one of the best offensive coordinators I've seen at Miami in a long time. I mean, Miami's had some really good offensive coordinators over the last 20 years.
Yeah.
But Shannon Dawson, Mario Cristobal hit a home run with him, man.
Hmm.
He hit a home run with Shannon Dawson.
Yeah.
And the school needs to step up, and I'm pretty sure Cristobal is going to go to the admin at the school and say, "Look, man, give this guy a raise because he needs to stay here. We don't need him getting out of here. He needs to be with the University of Miami. I would hope another few years at least, so they can win a championship. And then if they win a championship with him, it would just be so fitting for him to win a championship. And then if he wanted to branch out on his own, he could. You
Mhm.
know,
Yeah. Sometimes those guys, if they got a good staff and they got a good city that they're in, they might pass up them extra couple bucks. They'd rather just stay put. You're in a good city, nice coaching staff, good ambiance down there, beautiful facility, and he's a young coach too. He might like the nightlife a little bit, like
hmm
hanging out on the water, on the beaches and stuff like that. This might be the perfect spot for him.
yeah. He spent 3 seasons as the quarterback coach at Houston and very productive seasons. I mean, Houston quarterbacks combined throw 87 touchdown passes during his tenure there, which was 13th nationally, behind a
Hmm.
65.3 completion percentage, which was ranked 19 nationally, and 10,008 yards passing, which was 21st nationally. That's impressive for Shannon Dawson. That's all I got to say about that. And
Hmm.
Mario Cristobal, if you listening to me, keep Shannon Dawson. Don't let him go nowhere
You know
because,
what he's got. He knows
yeah, he knows what he's got, and it's very difficult to bring a new coordinator in because we've been through that with Miami. All these different people coming
it. Yeah,
through as
man.
offensive coordinator, and even Rhett Lashley, who's at SMU right now, he wasn't even able to take that offense to another level like Shannon Dawson has.
But he didn't have the talent either. Now, don't get it all
Well,
twisted up.
I completely agree with you. I agree with you with that. He did not have the talent that the current Miami roster has right now. They didn't have that type of talent back then.
No.
I
Mm-mm.
agree. So moving on.
Yeah.
Let's move on to Colorado versus Texas Tech. And
Beautiful
Colorado
game.
is currently seven.
Beautiful game.
They're
Beautiful game.
sitting on 7-2 with one more game to
Beautiful
go, and I believe
game.
that's against Utah. And Utah is not the Utah teams of the past. They lost yesterday by 1 point to Brigham Young University. Those two schools are in Utah. Brigham Young is in Provo, and the University of Utah is in Salt Lake. It's a hard fought game. Utah came up short at home, and they're going to be pretty pissed off when they come into Boulder at Folsom Field to play Coach Prime and the Colorado Buffs. But I think the Colorado Buffs are going to be ready for him. So you watched this game yesterday.
Oh, well, yes,
Give me
sir.
some takeaways. Give me some of the
Mhm.
takeaways that you have.
Man, Deion is coaching his tail off, man, over there. That's what's going down. Man,
41-27, but
yeah,
Colorado
man.
did fall behind, right?
Yeah. Well, they fell behind, but they caught up and they mauled those guys, man. These guys are playing some smash mouth, and that's what I love about this game, man. They are running up and down the field. They're getting everybody involved. I mean, both of his receivers are touching the ball. They got a good, strong running game, and this is the first time I've seen this. I'm saying this season. These guys are game tackling like never before. Man, it ain't that one guy grabbing those shoestrings and stuff like they laying wood on people out there, man. They just letting you
Mm-hmm.
know you in a football game. You ain't gonna just be just coming up in here doing what you want to do. Them guys are light your behind up. So yeah, man, and Shador is throwing the ball up and down the field, and I just love it. It's exciting to watch those guys, man, on offense and defense because they are game tackling, on defense. And the receivers, I love the way they run good, strong routes, and they even the decoys who's not getting the ball. You got to watch everybody because they're not just playing around.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you get when a receiver is not going to get the ball, he don't run as fast. These guys
Right.
take off running even if they're not getting the ball. The running backs are carrying out their fakes. I mean, it's really good coach, man. Them guys are well coached, man. And so, um, when you see these guys running the end zone to congratulate each other, it's like the whole team running down. It ain't like one or two that's down there already
Right.
congratulating when they score. The whole team wind up in that doggone end zone. So it's fun to them. You can see it. You can see how much fun they're having.
That's good. That's a good sign too. And once again, coattailing off of some of the sports casters on the main media outlets, they said if
Hmm.
he won these games, to finish the season out, he's
Hmm.
definitely in the top running for coach of the year for sure because
Well,
of what he's done
remember
at
you and
Colorado.
I talked about this about probably 3 or 4 weeks ago, and I was
Yes,
saying let some more games pass by before you started even talking about that. But now is you can start having that conversation because man, if you see the adversity in some of these games where he was poised, he was relaxed, he didn't, rush to judgment thinking that the game was over with. They just took their time, they came back and they won. And now for them to win big, these games they're winning big, man. So I can surely say, okay, he's in the ranking for coach of the year.
I would say the same. I mean, if they win against Utah at home, man, he'll be 8-2. They'll be in a huge bowl game. I would think that they'll
Hmm.
be in the Sugar Bowl, the Orange Bowl, or whichever bowl it's going to be the biggest bowl in terms of teams that don't make the college playoff. But
Right.
he'll be in that top 12. I
Mhm.
mean,
Yeah.
I can
Could
think
be.
that they moved them up because
It
right
could be.
now
Because
they
look at
might.
how many other teams that's lost 2 games are right in the thick of
Thank
things.
you. Thank you. So if you look at it right now, Colorado is sitting on number 18. So think
Oh
about
man.
that.
There could be some movement between these last 2 weeks. There could be
But
some
they have
definite
to win this
movement.
game. They have to win this game against Utah at home. They got to figure out how to win that game because if they drop that game, they'll lose 3 games, which wouldn't be a disaster for a season for them. But in
Yeah,
order
but
to
it
take
wouldn't
it
be.
to the next level,
Yeah.
I think they need to win this game against Utah.
They need to win
Because
out. They need to win out for
yep,
to
they
be
got to
in the
win
playoff.
out for him to
Yeah.
either for that coach of the year and for Utah, because Utah is they're down on their luck, man. I they've had a lot of injuries, so the coach Whittingham, Kyle Whittingham, he's a damn good coach. I've seen him coming in and out of LA. He recruits a lot in LA. I've seen him on flights in and out of here, and shit, he's been doing a fantastic job at Utah for quite some time. So they're gonna get it back together. I just think this is an off year for Utah. You know, with all of that said, um, now I want to ask you about an incident that happened at Colorado when or at Texas Tech when Colorado decided to, pull ahead of them and win this game. There was trash, tortillas, a vape, and all of that stuff thrown on the field. What do you think should happen with that? Do you think anything should happen to the school, or I mean, because fans throw stuff on the field all the time. So it's not like it's something out of the blue where these students decided that they just wanted to toss things onto the field. They do it at a lot of college games, even pro games.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. Well, I think what they need to do to start is to penalize a team. They used to do that. You give a unsportsmanlike penalty to the team, and that'll kind of wrap it up. Unless you got some old weirdo who done got drunk and just don't give a crap. But
Right.
usually that's enough. But I think it's despicable to see a kid that's out there having fun because after all, it's nothing but a game, it's entertainment. But then when
Right.
you start throwing stuff on the field, you can throw something in somebody's eye or
You
injure
can injure
someone
some of
doing
those
that, man,
players. Yeah.
doing that crap.
And not
And
only the
nobody.
players, when they throw stuff on the field, there is support staff this circling the field. I mean, if you think about where some of these objects were coming from, they have
Mhm.
photographers right behind the goalpost. They
Mhm.
have police officers standing there. They have quite a few support staff from the school itself, and these can be civilians that were allowed onto the field for whatever purpose they have. And for these people to throw these objects, I think it's very unfortunate that they don't know any better and would throw things down there like that, because to me it's a form of assault when you toss stuff like that
It
at
is.
someone, you know.
It
And
is.
I know they don't want to talk about that, but if you think about it, when you throw something at anyone, whether it's just an individual or a group of people, that can be perceived as assault.
Yeah. Just the safety issue, is more
Right.
important to me than any other thing. You pissed off, go somewhere and sit down, or don't watch the
Exactly.
game, or excuse your own self before you start throwing stuff out there. Because once you injure somebody, you can't take it back. So you fool around and go to
Yeah.
jail,
You know,
or
Coach Prime in
it's
his
just
press
it's get
conference.
suspended. Because if you're a student and you do it, you can get suspended for that. So they were right
Sure.
at home. So that's the worst thing you could do to somebody. And they out there playing. It's a game. It's entertainment, like I said before. It's a fun sport. And if you that disappointed in your team, just excuse yourself instead of throwing stuff out there on the field.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
according to Coach Prime in his press conference, he spoke very highly of the head coach over at Texas Tech, Joey
Oh yeah.
McGuire. And he said Joey McGuire immediately went on to the loudspeaker and
Apologize.
say,
Yeah,
please
yeah.
stop
I
throwing things
heard.
onto this field.
Yeah, yeah.
So
I
that's a
watched
class
even that.
act. He
Of
Prime say
course.
he reach out to this guy all the time
Yeah.
because he's kind of a mentor for Prime, because
Hmm.
this guy coached one of the best teams in Texas high school football. Cedar Hill, I believe the name of
Hmm.
the program was in Texas, and they had a really, really good record for a
Yeah.
long time under this coach. And this guy's doing a great job over at Texas Tech, and we wish him well.
Mhm.
And at some point in time, they get the right kind of
You know,
players
after the game,
combinations up in there.
I watched it. I watched their interaction, and I could tell the admiration they have for each other. Because
Right.
usually, when coaches don't like each other, they don't had they been at odds on some issue. They would dap each other up and run off. But these guys held each other, talked in each other's ear, embraced each other tightly, and then of course they separated. But you know, that's what sportsmanship is all about. You're supposed to
Exactly.
go out there and greet a guy. When you lost, you lost. You get them next year, either get them in the playoffs or whatever the case may be. But to start throwing stuff to try to intrigue or fight or something like that, or to try to think you're gonna swing the momentum back in another direction, it wasn't called for, man. So I'm glad that their coach got on the loudspeaker and told him to stop. And then, after he did that, it was okay.
Yeah. And you know what? I want to bring up one more thing about Colorado's program. I think they should tear up Rick George's contract at Colorado, who's the AD, and give him a new contract, because Rick George saw something that no one else saw in Prime. I mean, think about that. Think about Rick
Hmm.
George was actually the catalyst in bringing Prime in and giving him everything that he needed to build this program to where it is today. You gotta give Rick George some props, man. I mean, that's
Yeah,
just
that
that's
might be in the
just
making. You never know.
absolutely. I
That
mean,
might be in the
they should
making.
think about that, because Rick George is the reason that the school is back on track and they are back on the map and they're making this kind of money with Prime. He
Tons of
supported Prime from start to finish, even up until now.
Yeah.
And I would say he would probably be an AD that they want to try to hold on to at Colorado, even with Prime, because if you're talking about Prime getting out of there, you don't want Rick George to get out of there either, you know?
I like the support that he's giving Prime, man. Usually,
Oh, yeah.
when you got a guy coming there fresh in Division 1 school, and then of course the way they played last year, they started out smoking, but then they cooled off in the middle of the season, and then ultimately they had a losing season. But now they
Hmm.
totally turned it around, and even the way they're flamboyant. You got a bunch of hot dogs on their team where they like to show out and wear the jewelry in the cars, and of course they're making tons of money like that. Some people don't like that, but this guy allowing them guys to be their self, to be themselves. So it's just very interesting to watch, to see how these guys are out having fun, and in this, like I said before, it's just all entertainment. This is something that's beautiful for the country, it's beautiful for young kids, and it's beautiful for the student athletes to go out there and enjoy themselves, because you just in another year or two they'll be in a freaking job market trying to get jobs, if they don't, real jobs rather, if they don't
Yeah,
make it to professional football. So they
that's
let them
true.
guys have their fun, have the most fun as they can possibly have. Because I remember my
That's
college days, those best days of your life.
absolutely. It's nothing like a college experience when you're playing sports. It
Yep.
doesn't matter what sport it is. It's just like just being involved in sports, whether it's a team sport or whether it's an individual sport activity. You can't go wrong playing college sports at any level, whether it's Division One, two, three, or you know that type of thing. College is college, and you never can forget that experience as an athlete.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
moving on to pro football. Let's start with some of the
You,
games
you,
that
you,
you assessed
you,
today.
you forgot about Michigan, man. The
Well,
Wolverines.
we can come back to Michigan. Let's talk about Michigan. Okay, so let's talk about Michigan's decline.
They,
I mean, that's the best word to put, right? That's the best word. I mean, think about the
going
decline.
downhill, man. You
Let me
know,
just say this. Let me say this before we start this conversation about Michigan. I think Sharon Moore made a mistake. And the reason I think he made a mistake, he should have followed Harbaugh to the LA Chargers.
that the moment he took the
He
job.
would have been in LA right now. His job would have been stable. He would have never had to worry about looking, over his shoulder, because right now,
He was looking
this
over
is
his
only
shoulder.
the beginning of maybe a movement toward getting rid of Sharon Moore at Michigan at some point in time. I don't know. They may give him another year. I would hope they. But
It depends how
I
strong his
just think
mission.
that, yeah, this year, let's just say the Lloyd Manuel, who's Michigan's AD, they may just come, to the conclusion that it was just an off year for them after Jim Harbaugh left, even though, and they lost a lot of players to the NFL. So, but he's going to have that program on point, because there's too many people buying tickets at the big house. You got 100,000 people packed into a stadium, and they come to watch their favorite team win, and then they get shamed and embarrassed at home. I just don't. I think that's a high pressure job, man. And I
Yeah.
think Sharon Moore, respectfully, should have followed Harbaugh to the LA Chargers, and he
Yeah.
would have had everything monetarily. He still, if let's just say the Chargers didn't pay him the amount of money that he's making at Michigan now, he still would have been in a better position as far as I'm concerned. So I wish him well, but Michigan is not looking good right now.
This is what I think. The man thought he can do it. He was the interim head coach while Harbaugh was in the in time out, and he kept winning. And he thought he can handle a job, and maybe he can. Now, one thing that I don't like is the mere fact that he took like a lot of incentives in his contract, to prove himself. And maybe he might not ever get all of the money that he could have gotten because he filled the contract up with incentive. And that means he had to be winning a lot of games to get all that money that they had in that contract. So most coaches, and they don't put all those incentives in there like that. You're going to give me my money and that's it. This guy is going backwards. And see, you can't even bring up the mere fact that he's losing players. Everybody loses players. You just reload. You got the portal now. You got the a team just won a national championship. So you can't start shedding tears saying that, oh man, I got a lot of players that went to the NFL. That's no excuse. Nobody ain't buying that. I damn sure won't buy it because every team reload every single year. You know how many people uh, Alabama lose every year? They lose freaking eight, nine starters.
Same with Ohio State. Same with
Oh,
all
I
the
mean, and they
powerhouse teams.
reload.
Yeah.
They just reload, and that's what he should have done. I mean, it just shows you that when you lose players like that, and you have a bad season just because eight or nine people left, that means this you're gonna have some grease on your feet, man. That's all that's gonna happen. You know, Florida State could be that could be their reason. They lost a lot of players, and guess what? He can't win now. He got some grease on his feet. Because I'm gonna tell you right now, if he fired those several coaches, he gonna be the next because he's making moves because he on the hot seat. If that seat wasn't hot, he wouldn't have fired nobody, man. So somebody upstairs done grabbed him by his earlobe and said, "Listen here, dog, man, you better do something about this." And he started flipping people. So, man, I'm not going to ever buy the fact that you don't lost players to the NFL. It's all about reloading. It's all about going to these parents' house, knocking on doors, and get some fresh kids in there to keep your legacy going, to keep that movement going, to keep the winning streak going in the right direction. So I totally agree with you. He should have just jumped on that bandwagon with Harbaugh
Well, the
and been
defensive
on the West
coordinator did
Coast.
it. Jesse Minter, he followed Harbaugh to the
Mhm.
Chargers. I mean, what
Yeah,
what what kept Sharon Moore from making that decision? I have to say that he was very confident that he could run the
he could
program, that he
do
could maintain the
it. He could do
program,
it. He could do
and
it.
I know he can, but sometimes
100%.
circumstances when you're in a division now with Oregon, Indiana has gotten better, Penn State, you're looking at a lot of good teams that's at the top. I mean, and his record right now in the conference is 3-4 and overall 5-5. Listen, they were in the national championship last year. They won the
Yeah.
national championship last year,
You
and
know,
they end up 5-5 the very next year. Just doesn't make any sense to me.
yeah, something just came to mind now. I'm thinking this. Why would he leave and he actually lobbied for that job? Remember that?
Yeah,
Remember when Harbaugh was in timeout and they won a big game? I don't know if it was Ohio State or
it was
somebody,
against
but
Ohio State.
they
Yeah,
beat Ohio State, and dude, they had to bring him a box of Kleenex. He was crying so much on that field, and he was lobbying for the job at that point.
yeah, yeah.
Man, he was crying and freaking wiping his eyes, and they brought him a box of Kleenex, and man, it was almost shameful to see a man cry like that.
A grown
Man,
man cry, huh? Shameful to
man,
see a
oh
grown man
man.
cry.
Man, I was embarrassed to see him cry like that, man. You would think it was sorrow, not
Well, he
excitement.
was elated. I mean, you think about the excitement and the elation, and I guess the relief that he was able to do it when Harbaugh wasn't there. I
That
mean,
guy
on the
was lobbying
sideline
for a
with him.
job. He was lobbying for a job, man.
Well, he lobbied and he got the job. I mean,
He
he
got
got the
the job,
job
and
because
that's
he
why I'm
lobbied,
telling you,
right?
right, that's why he didn't go to the West Coast with Hardball. Because he was playing he was in he was in a job interview right then.
Man, I would have packed my bags if Harbaugh would have asked me, "Look, uh, Derek, you want to come out here with me, man? When can I report?" I mean, because think about it. I mean, the Chargers, whoever Harbaugh wanted to bring was going to be okay with that,
From over there.
especially Sharon Moore and Jesse
And if
Minter,
you think
who was the
about it,
defensive
that
coordinator.
defensive coordinator took over with Harbaugh instead of staying over there with him. See?
Yeah,
And that right there, just listen, that part is part of his losing right now because he don't even have the same defensive coordinator. That could be
yeah.
part of his losing. How many points they giving up? You know, he done brung some fresh person in there as a defensive coordinator. Even though he's been there, but that defensive coordinator is fresh meat in back there.
Well, I would say Texas went into the big house and shamed them point wise. They got
Man,
shamed. When Texas went into the
he,
big house, and that
if
was an
he,
early in the season game, but man, you let a team like Texas, and Texas has got a good team. Don't get twisted. Texas has got a fantastic team, both sides of the ball.
one
But
thing about
you can't let
football.
Texas come in there and embarrass you like that, man, in the big house. Just
Yeah,
can't do it.
that'll get you short ordered out, man. That will get
Yeah,
you ordered out of there. When you got a team that's used to winning and them boosters start getting there, man, your feet get greasy, man. They gonna get you right out. You gonna slide right out the door. They're not gonna put up with that losing, especially when they got a team that, because remember Harbaugh had a time beating Ohio State. And then
oh,
he
the
had got
first
where
6
he got
years,
on.
I think he
Yes,
lost every game against
yes,
Ohio State.
yes. And then
And
he
there
had
was
got
even
where he
people talking under their breath about
getting
Harbaugh.
ready
I
to
mean,
go because he couldn't
yeah.
beat Ohio State.
Look, man, you
And then
can't beat
all of a
the
sudden,
neighbor, the state, which is a neighbor for
yeah.
Michigan. You can't beat them, man. I mean, what's up?
And then
What's going
all of a
on?
sudden he had Ohio State's number. He started beating Ohio State every year. And then now
That's
they're
right.
gonna start losing to him, man. Come on.
He beat Ohio State 3 years in a row. I want to say Harbaugh did.
Yep.
Yeah. Looks
So
like
that guy.
Oregon went in there and shamed them too, 38-17 at home. Texas beat them 31-12 at home.
Hmm.
And the end of the year, they got to go to Ohio State, and I'm pretty sure it's not going to be pretty at Ohio State
He might
this year.
have some. He might have some Kleenex tissues for another reason this time. It's gonna be a
They actually
strong
lost to Indiana. I mean,
Southern style.
Indiana beat them, because Indiana was at home, and Indiana has got a great team. They're undefeated. So,
He had tears of excitement last year. He gonna have tears of sorrow this year.
well, let me make a soft
Prediction.
prediction.
What? They gonna
Going
be
into the off season, he better get his team together. They better be on the field next year, ready to play. And don't lose no games in the big house. Don't lose no games in the big house at home.
don't
Maybe on the
run
road, one
tradition
here and
feet.
there, but don't lose no games in the big house. Now, let me say this. If they go to Ohio State this year and they handle that one, he'll have some reassurance for next year. There won't be the Detroit media and the media in that part of Michigan won't be talking about him, talking under his clothes. Because if he doesn't get that game handled at Ohio State, it's just going to be adding on to the misery going into the off season for him. So
I'm
we'll move
thinking.
on. We'll move on, and I wanted to kind of delve into, once again, college football is. It used to be dominant teams when we were children and were growing up, and once we realized which were the dominant teams in college football, it was the Oklahomas of the world. It was the Georgias of the world. It was these teams were so dominant, man. It was really hard to beat them. I mean, in terms of, having other teams come in. But when the recruiting spread out, then it started to get evened up in a lot of areas where almost every team you play now, any given weekend, you can get beat. Because
Yeah.
the athletes are so spread around now, and these are 4 or 5-star athletes.
And
4-star
you don't have
athletes
to
is
stay
like
put either.
almost to the top, right?
Right. And they don't have to stay put like they used to. You get recruited, you have to stay there for all 4 years. And if you opted to leave, you sit out a year. So that wasn't
Correct.
much movement with these student athletes. They wasn't bouncing around from school to school.
Correct. So you had the Florida States with Bobby Bowden. They
Hmm.
were a powerhouse. You had
Yeah.
Nebraska with Tom Osborne. You had Oklahoma with Barry Switzer,
Hmm.
and you had Fred Akers at Texas. I mean, Texas wasn't no bad team back then either. I mean, Texas had some good
You
teams
had
back then.
Bear Bryant back in the day. We were
Bear
smart. We were
Bryant.
really,
Yeah,
yeah.
you can forget the Bear.
Hmm.
Sweet home Alabama. Hey, you know
Checkerboard
what?
hat.
I love that song, man.
Yeah.
So
You had that
it's
checkerboard hat on. They still wear that
that's it.
hat. A lot
That's
of
it.
fans still wear that checkerboard hat.
I wonder whatever happened to Walter Lewis. You remember Walter Lewis used to be the quarterback for Alabama, right?
Yeah.
I'd like to look in. I'm going to do a little bit of research after the show, and
Look
I'm going to
him
see
up,
where
man. Let's
Walter
see.
Lewis is
Yeah.
today, because Walter Lewis was a good player, man, and he played for Bear. He played under
Hmm.
Bear. I believe Bear's last years, Walter Lewis was one of the option quarterback, very impressive quarterback in his time,
Yeah. What
because
about
we're
Tony
looking at a
Nathan? Tony
different
Nathan
time
played
frame
for him.
now.
Tony
Who?
Nathan played for him too. Tony
Tony
Nathan.
Nathan. Tony Nathan was the
Yeah.
highest recruited athlete in the state of Alabama to play for Alabama at the time
Yeah.
as a running back.
I see him quite often, and he don't look like he played a down football, man. He's
A
real
lot of them don't. After they leave the
thin,
game, even
skinny.
the offensive and defensive linemen, they lose
Yeah,
mad weight, man. You see them
yeah.
sometimes, and you be like, "Did this guy ever weigh
Yeah,
360 or
but even if you look
350?"
at Mario Cristobal, he don't even look like he was a lineman. I mean, he played for the University of Miami, but he don't look like a lineman. He looked like he could have been a DB or something, because
He looked like
now
a
he's got
linebacker to me now,
yeah,
because
or a
that's how
linebacker
that's
because he's got
he
that
looked he looked
shoulders.
like a linebacker shape,
Yeah,
and you could tell Mario Cristobal takes really good care of him, man, because
yeah.
just looking at him on the sideline, man, he looks good, man. I mean, he
He
works
looked
out.
like he's
You can
still
tell
working
he
out.
works
Yeah.
out.
Hmm.
Yeah, you can tell he works out. So, with all of that said, we're gonna move on to the next subject. How about that?
Go ahead.
All right, let's talk a little bit here about. And let me pull up the news because I had this
Dolphins
subject. And
coming on tomorrow.
yeah, the Dolphins is here in LA. That's a
Yeah,
good one to start with. The
yeah.
Dolphins are here in
We
Los
need to
Angeles
start looking
playing the
forward
Los
to
Angeles
tomorrow.
Rams tomorrow.
Hmm.
How about that?
Yeah.
Can they beat the Rams? I'm hoping they can, but it's going to be interesting because Sean McVay, if he's coaching, the Rams is competitive. The Rams can win the game if Sean McVay is coach. Sean McVay is my guy. He's one of my guys, and I'm telling you right now, the Rams going to show up tomorrow, so the Dolphins definitely got to show up and show out, you know.
We'll see. We'll see. The Dolphins got
Because
everybody in
I
place
was
right
reading an
now, but
article the other day
they
that
do have Deion.
they said a lot of defenses have adjusted to Mike McDaniel's offense. Do you think that?
Could be. I mean, they could have been. It wasn't fast. They could have adjusted to his. I mean, you got film, man. Come on, you got film. You can adjust to anything, whether you
Mhm.
stop it or not. When I play, you just gotta stop it. A lot of people know you. You get game film. You watch these tapes. They know everything. And even when they record your cadence, they know when
Mhm.
you're gonna hike the ball. This is a matter of just stopping the play. That's all it is, man. So, when they started that run and shoot, how many offenses start running that same type of offense?
Well,
They
the
just
run and
can't stop
shoot was
that.
created back in the early 80s with Daryl Mouse Davis. I don't know, most people, the younger generation, don't remember Mouse Davis, but Mouse Davis was the architect of the run and shoot offense. He created that offense where the quarterback, they actually pull the quarterback out, and the quarterback was on the run and he could throw the ball while he was running. And Jim Kelly was kind of one of Miles Davis's first projects, where
Mm-hmm.
at the Houston Gamblers of the USFL, remember the Gamblers?
Mm-hmm.
The USFL,
Yeah.
Jim Kelly could have went to the NFL to start, and he decided to go to Houston in the USFL because they offered him more money. And he ended up playing under Miles Davis, and the
Yeah.
run and shoot offense was kind of created from that point on. And a lot of other offensive coordinators
Mm-hmm.
took the offense and they tweaked it a certain way based on, I guess, the talent that they had on hand. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I wanna talk about the top fastest NFL players in the NFL. I mean, over the last 40 years. So I'm gonna
The
give you
top.
some names. The top fastest NFL players of the last 40 years, and I'm gonna throw some names out here to you. I'm gonna
Mm-hmm.
throw Darrell Green's name out to you. I'm gonna throw Ronaldo Nehemiah's name out to you. And these are names that most people now might not even be familiar with. These were guys played in the 80s and the 90s.
Yeah.
Deion Sanders, which is Coach Prime. He was pretty freaking fast. I mean,
Yeah.
for his time as well.
Mhm.
And you had Willie Gault.
Yeah.
You remember Willie Gault, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Willie Gault was a burner. He
Yeah.
was nothing nice when it came to, and he played for Chicago. Willie Gault played for
Yeah.
Chicago.
Yeah.
And then they said the fastest player of all time was Bob Hayes. So, in your
I don't
opinion,
know
which
about
one
that.
would you say in your
Remember,
time was the
hang on.
fastest?
Remember Ronaldo Steaks Miamaya, the track star? Remember
Yeah,
him?
that's
He
who
was the
I
looking.
mentioned earlier, Ronaldo
Yeah.
Nehemiah.
I think he
Yeah.
was the fastest one.
You think so?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm looking right here at ranking the top 10 players, fastest players of all time.
Remember they used to
And
have the thing on Key Biscayne where they would have all the football players come over there and run track.
sure, I
It
remember that.
was, and
Yeah, I
I
remember
remember
that.
Willie Galt and Herschel racing.
Well,
Herschel,
Hey, listen,
he
man,
had world class speed, man.
Herschel had
Herschel was
world
a
class
beast.
speed to be his size. I
Yeah,
mean, you look at
yeah,
his size
yeah, man.
and to be running like that. I mean,
Hmm.
because I thought Herschel ran a 4.540 back in them times.
Yeah, he
You
was
know,
bad, man. I mean, that big jungle used to be smoking coming down that sideline too. You know, nobody coming to get Herschel, man. You forget about it. And Bo. Bo was fast too, man.
Bo was super fast for a football player. Bo Jackson
Yeah,
for
that guy
Auburn
didn't even make sense
and
for
for the
him.
Raiders, of course.
Yeah.
Yep. So they have Tyreek Hill ranked number 5 here. You think Tyreek Hill is one of the fastest football players in the history of the game?
He probably right where he's supposed to be because I think those other guys may have been faster than him, but Tyreek just quick because he's short and he run these quick routes and stuff. But like open field, I think some of those other guys that you mentioned definitely probably was faster than him.
Okay, so Willie Gault and Ronaldo Nehemiah were track stars. So
Yeah,
I would want to bunch them into the same
you could
category
punch him in
as
there
football
with
players.
Hill, but Hill was a track
He was a
star
track
too.
guy over at
Yeah,
Oklahoma State, right?
yeah, hmm,
When he played at Oklahoma State, he ran track.
yeah. He ran track.
Bo Jackson, for his size at
Bo ran,
227
Bo and Herschel
pounds,
both ran track too. Both of them ran track, Bo and Herschel.
they did. They
Yeah,
did. I remember when Herschel ran track
yeah.
for Georgia. He was
Mm-hmm.
one of the fastest track stars at
Yeah.
Georgia
It didn't
because
even seem right. A guy
I would
named Bo.
say at Georgia during that time when I was in high school, and Herschel's time was different from these guys, but they had 2 guys that I'm going to mention here. Stanley Blaylock, who went to high school at my high school, Northside High School in Atlanta,
Mm-hmm.
and Emmanuel Blakeney. Those 2 guys were burners, man. They were sprinters and they ran track at Georgia, at that time. Much younger than Herschel, and neither one of those guys actually played. They tried out for NFL ball, but they never really made it that big in the NFL at the time. But I would say, me personally, I still think Willie Gault was the fastest runner in football
He could have very well been the
because
fastest.
Gault ran track at Tennessee.
Mm-hmm.
So they got Deion
They had
Sanders
a
here at number 9.
Willie Galt. They had a bad relay at that time, man. Tennessee with
Yes,
Willie Galt, man, they had a
yes,
bad relay team.
they did. They did. Edwin Moses, remember he's a Morehouse man too. Edwin Moses
Right.
was one of the hurdlers.
Yeah, he wasn't no sprinter though, man.
No, he
Just
wasn't a
was
sprinter, but he was the best hurdler in
yeah,
of all time, in my opinion.
yeah.
I
And
mean, I
so
talked to a gentleman last week about Edwin Moses, and he remembered Edwin Moses because he said that he looked at the '84 Olympics, and Edwin Moses set a precedence in 1984 when the Olympics were here in Los Angeles back then.
yeah,
And again, he was a Morehouse man, so you got to think about that too.
yeah.
They clocked Deion at a 4.27 in the 40-yard dash. 4.27. So technically, if you do the math, it's a 4.3, but without equipment, I would say he probably ran a consistent 4.2 without any
Mm-hmm.
football equipment on, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's kind of what I wanted to go over a little bit. You have any topics you would like to discuss?
No, we can wrap it up, man. I enjoyed this moment, man. We had a
I did. I
couple
did, as
conversations
always.
about this week, and we got to get into it tomorrow before the Monday Night Football
Yeah, we're
game.
gonna do a show tomorrow because
Yeah,
Miami is playing the Rams, so we
we
gotta
got to
cover that
cover
one.
Miami before the game. You
We
see, I'm
got
all
cover
geared up.
Miami because
I'm
I'm always
geared
rooting for Miami, no matter where they
Still
are.
geared up
If
with
they
my
come out here and
Miami
play the
Dolphins.
Chargers, for sure, you got to support the Dolphins gear, man.
Oh,
I
tell
have
them
some
already,
UM
man.
gear. I got to get me a Dolphins hat. I got to get one.
Okay,
So the
I'll
next
send you one
time,
out there.
next year,
You
when
get
the
100
Dolphins
on.
come out here, I can wear it.
You ain't got to
I
wait
love
the
it.
next year. I can
That's
red eye
true.
you one tonight. You can have it tomorrow.
You can red out me one tonight.
Yeah, you'll have
Man,
it
aren't you
before the
so
game tomorrow.
kind? Even
Yeah,
though you
you'll have it
mistreat me
tomorrow.
from time to time, I think you one of the kindest guys on the planet. How about that?
Yeah, I'm nice until you screw up.
No, you just you all over me, man. You give me a hard time, but you know what? I love you to death, brother.
Yeah, man,
So
you
we
always on the line. I had to get you back in focus.
you gotta get me back in focus.
Yeah, you
What's
always
the
doing
biggest
something
thing that
wrong.
I need to focus on right now?
Your attitude
Okay.
and your
Well, I'm gonna work
altitude.
on my attitude. You know I got to do that, right?
Yeah,
So
man.
we'll wrap this show up. I really
Okay.
enjoyed tonight. As
Of course.
always, Isaiah is my co-host. So we're gonna
Yeah.
be doing this thing all the way. We're gonna be riding dirty regularly. I mean,
Yeah.
during every week, we ride dirty. So come ride dirty with us.
Yeah.
Hit that like button, subscribe to us. Because the algorithm is gonna be always good to us. And we'll be looking forward to tomorrow. Thank you for sharing your time with us as a viewer, and we will do this thing again tomorrow. Peace out to everyone. Be
Yeah.
safe. Take care of each other. Take it easy, Isaiah. We'll talk again tomorrow. See
Take
you.
care, buddy. Later.
All right.
You've reached the end of another episode of the DC Stewart Sports Talk podcast. Be sure to connect with us at Facebook and Twitter.com. Your voice is important, so head over to iTunes to subscribe, rate, and leave us a review. Catch our next episode.